Evening everybody, welcome back to Norwich Talk. Norwich City have just lost 2-0 to Swansea in a game that was not very fun to watch, to be quite honest with you. Not that I really needed to say that, of course. It's a massive win for Swansea, fair play to Swansea. I'll get this out of the way nice and quickly. In the podcast before the game, we were talking about how good they've been, not that it really takes a genius to figure that out or point that out. They came tonight with a clear game plan, do what they've done for the entire season. They did it really well. They've picked up the 3 points, fair play to them. They were by far the better team than Norwich this evening, which we've been saying a few times in the last few weeks. As I mentioned the podcast earlier, we were a bit worried coming into the game, given the string of results leading up to it. Norwich's performances weren't really up to the standard expected. I won't say the usual standard, the standard that we expect. And that showed tonight. Norwich really lacked confidence, but we'll save that for a little bit later in the video. In terms of the starting lineup, I was okay with it, to be honest with you. Jacob Sorensen came back in on the podcast. We talked about why that might happen. I think it totally makes sense for a team that are as expansive as Swansea. Sorensen makes sense because he's a bit more defensively minded, whereas Janulis isn't, quite obviously. I thought he was okay, but then to be honest with you, you can sort of copy and paste that point about the whole team. Really, we were okay, which is why we've lost that game, because you can be okay in the Championship as much as you like, but when it's a team who have as much quality and have been playing as well as Swansea, you're going to get punished. Kenny McLean came into the lineup as well. Before his COVID test, he was in a pretty good string of form, wasn't he? Tonight, for me personally, I don't think he was really good. He kept giving the ball away. I think he put one good ball in for Adamida, and obviously he basically just assisted the Swansea goal, the second goal that is, of course. I've not really seen much on Twitter about him, so I haven't been able to sort of gauge what other people made of him tonight, but he really wasn't very good for me, and I put a tweet out during the game about how taking Ollie Skip off, keeping McLean on, was a bit of a war crime, and I stand by that. It was a really weird decision, but we know how much Daniel Farke rates Kenny McLean. But in terms of the first half, you can't really sort of pick out, for the first 40 minutes anyway, you can't really pick out too many faults. Norwich looked comfortable. There were a couple of opportunities. Timu Puki looked to break free a couple of times. We looked comfortable, which for me was the main thing really leading up to the game. I was very nervous because I thought Swansea were just going to sort of outplay us, because in the last 3 or 4 games, Norwich haven't been the better team within them fixtures, which made me worried. But tonight, we looked comfortable. We kept the ball well. There were a couple of decent passages, but then that was just undone by the first goal. And now, there's never a good time to concede a goal in a game, which is such an obvious thing to say. But when you're doing it just before half-time, and obviously we would then go on to concede the second just after, it really just whacks the momentum out. And it's like managing on Football Manager. When you concede a goal before half-time, it just undoes literally everything. The mood then completely changes because the goal will be really fresh on the players' minds. And you know, Norwich conceded then, and we saw that a lot last season, didn't we? Where it would be a goal just after half-time, I should say, and it would just knock the stuffing out of Norwich, and for me it did. And it was a really poor goal to concede at that. That's the most frustrating thing. Tim Krul has had a bit of a shocker, but equally, the 5 or 6 players in between Andre Ayew and the goal should be stopping that, absolutely hands down. Really poor defending from Norwich all round, which is ironic, pardon me, because literally before the game I was talking about how sort of defensively sound Norwich are now, and when the emphasis isn't on attack, Norwich are really good in defence, but that goal has proven maybe that's a little bit wrong, and it was a really poor goal to concede, and as I mentioned, it's such a horrible time where it just knocked the stuffing out of Norwich, didn't it? But at half-time, there was 40 minutes of football to sort of hold on to. Norwich looked a little bit better. It was a fairly bright start to the game, to be honest with you. Max Aarons was looking a little bit sharper tonight, which is really important, but, you know, the goal happened, and then we got into the second half, conceded immediately. Kenny McLean, with some, I don't know really what it was. I don't know whether it's meant to be a touch or whether it's meant to be a pass back to someone, but it was really poor. And Conor Hourihane, you know, he loves to score against Norwich, doesn't he? I think that must be his 7th goal in 9 games against Norwich, and I'm basing that off, I think the commentator said 6 and 8 before. And, you know, the commentators were really enjoying Conor Hourihane tonight, weren't they? You know, he's a quality player, but Jesus Christ, let's calm it down a bit. But he got his goal, and for me, that was then the game finished, because Norwich don't score score 3 goals in games this season. That's just not a thing they do, which is really frustrating. And a problem for Norwich throughout the season showed again tonight in that we just don't really look like we know what we're doing when we're in attack. There's no, like, I kept saying this in the podcast, and I don't want to bring it up, but you sort of have to. There's no prime Steeperman who sort of links the whole team together, who gets the ball from midfield, gives it to Timu Pukki. There's not that player. We are absolutely crying out for it. And tonight, there was just no conviction from Norwich at all. And you know what? You could tell that Daniel Farke was worried because he made a triple substitution really early, which I agreed with on the most part, apart from Ollie Skip coming off. I found that really, really bizarre. I get maybe the theory of it in that he's a defensive-minded player, but on the ball he's really good, so I find that really odd, and I can't justify that one. But the fact he made the triple substitution that early means we can't really blame the subs tonight. It just wasn't Norwich City's night. And on sort of a wider point, I want to compare this performance to maybe, but bear with me please, I beg you, to Leeds last season where we lost 3-0. This type of sort of negative result, I want that to be used to spur Norwich on. Now, please believe me, I'm not comparing it to that game specifically in terms of the performance, but sort of the impact of that game where we're a bit like, oh, what now? I want Norwich to feel that. I want the players to feel like, oh dear, maybe if we keep sort of trotting along week in, week out, winning 2-1, that's not going to work. Hopefully for me, and again, this is me desperately trying to be positive, this spurs the players on to then go and kick on and be a bit more aggressive in games, which we desperately need to do. And Swansea, to be fair to them, to put a bit of a spotlight on them, they were really good. They look really solid. I haven't got a clue how Hourahan, that's a mouthful, isn't it? How Hourahan didn't get a yellow card in the first half for kicking the ball away, but when the referee is Simon Hooper, that guy is just a little cherry tomato on a football pitch with an official's uniform on. I don't know what he's doing. I don't think he really knows what he's doing. But we're not here to get distracted by the referees. But Swansea look really well organised, and I think a difference between Norwich and Swansea, for example, the 18-19 Norwich, is that when they don't have the ball, they look really assured, and I admire that and I envy it. And they've barely conceded this season. They've conceded 15 goals, which is absolutely remarkable. Now, they're a bit like Norwich in terms of their scoring. They don't score too many. But when they're going to control a game like that, fair play to them. I've seen a few people on Twitter enjoying Cantwell not playing particularly great. I thought he was okay tonight, to be honest with you. But again, as I said earlier, literally everyone was just sort of okay. Timu Pukki at the moment looks a bit of a shadow of his former self, which is kind of worrying. But at the same time, if he's given more chances, I think he'll start scoring again. But I think the main takeaway from this is the season's not over. Norwich is still top of the table, but that said, there is plenty of justification and reason as to why Norwich fans are frustrated. I myself am really frustrated. It's a bit of a weird reaction from my perspective because I get really sort of angry and frustrated during games, but when I see other people sort of melting down, it weirdly calms me down, which is a bizarre thing, really. But my main question here is what now? I don't really know what Norwich have to do, bar take chances, but I don't know how Norwich can sort of alter the game to start taking the game to opposition's again. I don't really know, to be honest with you. Honestly, I can't make up a reason on the spot, and I imagine if I go and think about it now for the next couple of days, I still won't know. But that's Daniel Farke's job. He's the man who's got to figure it out. If you have a reason for it, or if you have some sort of logic in the comments down below that you can give to me, comfort me maybe, comfort yourself, comfort anyone, any Norwich fan really, then stick it in the comments. As you can see, I'm slowly melting down now, so I'm probably going to put an end to this video. But yeah, that's my question to you. What now for Norwich? How do we go about the games for the rest of the season? Obviously, we've got Buendia back for the next game, which will be huge in terms of our creativity. We really missed him tonight, didn't we? Hemi Buendia. But I don't want to talk about him because the players on the pitch weren't good enough tonight. There were some bright sparks. I think this is probably the best we've played for the last 3 or 4 games, which is weird because it's the one we've lost. But that said, I don't know what else to say, what else Norwich really can do at the moment. I'm not saying the race is over. It's not. If you say that, you're an idiot. Stop being stupid. But yeah. Let's not get unreasonable, but let's be constructive with our criticism tonight. But yeah, that is just about everything for this video. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Give the video a thumbs up if you're feeling generous. If you could subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, that'd be pretty cool. So until next time, we'll see you again very, very soon.